simply do water if you'd like to a boil. All right. So the quickest way to do that is we're going to use a skillet instead of a pot. So we got our skillet. We're going to crank it all the way up, and we're going to be putting our chicken broth in. So the reason we're using a skillet instead of a pot to get our stock to a boil quickly is because it has more surface area. This will enable it to boil in a matter of a minute or 2 minutes instead of waiting 8 to 10 your normal amount of time. So we're going to bring it up to a hard boil, then we're going to add this to our couscous, and then we're going to cover it with plastic and let it sit for 10 minutes. Okay. All right, so we've come to a hard boil. Now we're going to be moving it over and pouring it into couscous. Pour it in. You're mixing it up. Okay. Now we're going to wrap it onto our chicken scallopini. So we have our skillet. We want to get our skillet on 30 seconds to a minute beforehand to start to warm it up. And we're going to add a couple ounces of our olive oil or garlic oil in this case. Enough to coat the bottom, not enough so you're shallow frying. Okay. We have taken our chicken and we have lightly dusted it in our flour. The heat that we're looking for is going to be a medium heat. You want to be able to try to cook the chicken all the way in the skillet without having to put it in the oven. That way you don't have to worry about firing the oven up. But if you're worried about it, you feel that your chicken is too thick, or you're worried about pounding it out because it's going to fall apart, you can put it on a cookie sheet tray, pop it right in the oven 5-6 minutes while you're finishing off your sauce, and then pull it out and it'll all be done together. So you're going to take a little pinch of flour, and you're going to drop that into your oil. And if you get the reaction, a bubbly reaction, then you know it's going to be warm enough for you to start. I'm going to go for just a little bit longer. All right, when you lay your chicken, you want to make sure that you lay your chicken away from you so that it does not splash any of the oil on you. So you're watching the exterior of your chicken. As your chicken will start to cook, around the outside, your edges will start to brown, and they'll lose the transparency that they basically have in a raw state. Okay. You're also watching the amount of bubbles that's happening in your pan to determine how high you want your heat. Okay. So once you come up where your oil is really rolling, we're going to turn that down to a medium low. Okay. So that we can get our chicken cooked all the way through. Now you can put more in, or you can cut your chicken down to a smaller portion if you'd like, if you feel better about that. We're going to pan sear our chicken in 2 batches, and then we'll start on our. So as your chicken cooks, you'll start to see that the outside is going to start to get more white. What we're looking for is to start to see that brown on the tips. Now, if your skillet is uneven and you start to see hot spots, make sure that you're moving your chicken around in order to adjust so that you don't have one piece that's going to be really dark and one piece that's light. So we're almost there. You see how the white's coming all the way up around. You start to see peeking through the middle of the chicken. You can always tell where your thicker parts are because they're reacting a little bit less. Now your chicken cooks, it will start to firm, so you can actually feel the chicken and feel how firm it will be. Almost there on this first round, and then we'll get our second two. All right. So add a little bit more oil to our sauce. Judge how much oil is still in your skillet. You just want about 1.5 tablespoons or so in here for us to make our pan sauce. Okay. What we're making is a pan sauce. We're using the drippings from the actual chicken to make this. So our first thing going in is a tablespoon of garlic. Then we're going to have 2 ounces worth of yellow onions. And to that right now, we're going to be adding our zucchini. I like to add your zucchini in early, because I like to get a little bit more color on the zucchini. We have our skillet on high heat when we're making our pan sauce. We're going to get a little bit of caramelization in our onions, our garlic, and our zucchini. Now we're going to go in with our artichoke hearts. Artichoke hearts, our Kalamata olives. So we're going to hit it with our lemon juice, some acidity and some pasta. A little bit of our white wine. And we're going to let this cook down. And we're going to fluff our couscous. So you're just going to come in down the sides of your bowl, and you're going to gently lift, okay, breaking up any of the clumps of couscous that you have in there. And get light and fluffy. All right, so we have our fresh herbs. It's a big key. Okay, so we're going to add our fresh herbs in. We're going to add our 2 ounces of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And then I have a microplane. So I'm going to microplane in some fresh lemon zest. A little bit. Don't get too deep because you don't want to get into the pith of the lemon because then it'll get bitter. So a little bit of that. Then we got a little pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper. And we're going to put all that together. Nice lemony fresh, herbs popping. Okay. We're ready for that. Right, we're going to go back to finish our sauce. Okay, so our sauce is reducing down. We're going to take our sauce down to what they call sec. Sec means almost dry. So if you bring your solids to it and your liquid doesn't roll back to the front to where you need to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding in our last of our fresh ingredients, our tomato. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of our parsley now. We're going to use a little bit of garnish. Okay. So we're going to toss this together just enough to heat the tomatoes through, and then we're going to start using our butter. Now, when you're going to butter out your sauce, your heat has to be off. You're going to let the heat from the actual ingredients be melting the butter, okay, in order to make your butter sauce. Okay? All right, so our heat's going to get turned off now, and we're going to start adding in our butter. Okay? We're going to do them in small chunks, that way it melts more evenly. So you start to get a richness and a creaminess as the butter fat solids come out. Chicken. Okay, so now we have all of our ingredients ready to go. So we have our lemon and herb couscous, we have our chicken breast, and we have our sauce. So we're going to plate this family style. And when I make this, a normal portion of dry couscous per person is 4 ounces. So I do a little more than that because my children devour couscous. So I usually do double that. Okay? We got our portion of couscous there. We have our chicken breast. We figure our chicken breast. And then we have our finishing sauce. And go right down the middle over the top of everything. And then we're going to finish with some fresh parsley. And there you have it.
Well, I think I speak for everyone when I say that was amazing, and we are all starving, and that looked absolutely delicious. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Will you have a recipe that you'd be willing to share with us?
Yes, I'm going to share the link to our YouTube page that has this video with the recipe along with some other ones that we're continuing to add.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know y'all had a YouTube page. That's fantastic. I'm excited to see more stuff. Okay. Did anybody have any questions that they had?
You want us to type them or just ask?
You can just ask. There aren't since we have a little bit of a smaller group, I think y'all can just ask. That's fine.
So I've never made couscous before. So you just brought that broth to a boil and then put it in the pan, added the couscous, and it just cooked on its own?
Yes. So the boiling liquid will take care of cooking the couscous. So you're looking at 8 to 10 minutes usually. And it's equal parts, so you can do it for one person or 10 people just as easy. So you buy your couscous at any normal store. My kids make it for themselves all the time because they just nuke the chicken broth in the microwave and pour it right over their couscous. Usually, yeah, you wrap it up in plastic wrap, and you can just let it sit on the counter. And then when it's done, you can add whatever you like. My daughter's a real fan of cucumbers in hers, so she likes to add cucumbers and fresh mint and things like that. It's really versatile and it's super easy to cook. Everybody should try it.
So that's probably better than ramen noodles then, right?
Yeah. Well, if you don't add any of the packs of the ramen noodles, it's not as bad. The bad part is actually the packs for the ramen noodles. So I've actually convinced my children not to add the packs. And so they'll add, fresh stuff of their own to do it. But those little packages are so bad for you. And yeah, I mean, everything that's in there is just little packets of poison in my mind. But I know my daughter's a fan of ramen like everybody else. She's 17, she's going to eat ramen noodles, but I've convinced her to put fresh chicken and chicken broth and, basil, fresh tomatoes, things like that to jazz up her noodles a little bit instead of the package.
Great idea. Thank you.
In the chat, they're asking, how much butter did you use?
I'd have to look back to the recipe. It was either 4 ounces or 6 ounces.
Were the Kalamata olives fresh or in a jar?
So they're in a jar.
So I was going to ask, I know one of the things that often gets said way to kind of step up your cooking is to utilize fats and acids. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit? Because I know about butter and that's about it. So.
Well, I mean, everything that, they say everything's better with bacon and butter. And that's just simply for the fact that, fat is flavor. And so, for truly good tasting things. You know, people like steak because it's fat. It coats your tongue. Butter's the same way. Bacon's the same way. So the fattier something is, even if you're looking at like, you know, an avocado, you know, that fat coats your tongue. It tastes better. Acids are for balance. And so the reason why you always want to have something that's acidic is because it actually cleanses your palate. And so after you take a bite of something that's fatty, you want to cleanse the palate by having something that's highly acidic, which will then clean your tongue and ready it for the next bite. So a perfect example is if you go out for a nice steak dinner, the reason why people drink a nice Cabernet or Merlot with that is because after each bite of steak, that fat is coating your tongue. And in order to clean it so that you're ready for each bite to be as exciting as the first is that red wine will then cleanse your tongue and clean that palate and awaken your taste buds.
Okay. Thank you.
So we can call it cleaning now.
That's right. That's what my wife says every night when she's drinking red wine. You know, this dish we did literally in the 10 minutes that it takes is nothing different than I would do at my home or my wife would do at home. I mean, these are simple, easy things with just fresh ingredients, and it doesn't have to be a set recipe. People think that everything has to be set in stone. You're going to put in it what you like. If you're not an olive fan, leave them out, you know, and a lot of people are that way. If you happen to be a fan of another vegetable, let's just say you like snow peas, then there's nothing wrong with throwing snow peas or asparagus tips or something like that in there. You know, it's quick, it's easy, and it gets vegetables. The reason I like doing it is because it can get vegetables into my kids' diets. And it's hard to do that with teenagers. And so if I can get them into a nice sauce, then they'll eat it with the chicken. Whereas if I were to just take, you know, a zucchini and put it on a plate, they're probably not going to eat it.
So do you have any recommendations for kind of websites or cookbooks or stuff to go to? Because I know there's like all recipes and tasty and things like that, but they're so big and overwhelming and often not very nutritious.
You know, honestly, I have a giant collection of cookbooks, and I would think that most chefs honestly do. I mean, I have so many that I have them in milk crates stacked in the garage because I don't have enough room in my house. I mean, when you get to several hundreds, you know, of something, everything brings something different to the table. You know, so, and it never runs out. You can always keep reading cookbooks. You can always keep looking. And I always keep buying. So what I would suggest first off is find something that you're really interested in, not just interested in eating, but interested in preparing, because it's more fun if you're interested in doing it. And so foods that you like to eat, that should be your first thing you start. You know, I'm Sicilian, but I don't like to eat Sicilian first, believe it or not. I love Vietnamese food. I love Indian food. So for me, those are things that I like to do. I like to prepare and I like to research. And so the more authentic, the better for me. And so for you, find something that you like. So if it's really about being healthy, the great thing is right now, there's so many great cookbooks out there about fresh ingredients and being healthy. But don't take anything away from what that element is bringing you. So, you know, don't try to mask a fresh vegetable with too many heavy sauces and things like that, because then it doesn't really give you what it's intended to. You know, just roasting, so an example, cauliflower, we've convinced a number of students in school that, you know, we do a garlic oil brushed roasted cauliflower here with just a little bit of shaved Parmesan on it. And we've had rave reviews from a ton of students about it. And that's something simple that everybody can do, but people hear cauliflower and think, oh, I don't like cauliflower. It's not about the cauliflower itself. It's about the end result. When I was growing up and all my mother wanted to do was boil it, I hated cauliflower. But now that I know, you know, when I roast it, it gets caramelized, it has a sweetness come out, and the garlic flavor with the Parmesan makes it super rich and nutty, and, you know, they really like it. So it's about finding the ingredients and finding a method that you like to prepare and that you like to eat.
I have never cooked with fresh herbs. How do you learn what goes well with the various foods?
Okay. So for fresh herbs, you know, it's another one of those trial and error things. You know, you have your standards of people here seafood and they feel like dill works really well with it. But it really is about the accompaniments that you're going to serve it with, and the things that you like. So I would start with your basic herbs first before you get too adventurous. You know, things like basil. Most people are very familiar with it. They're familiar with what it works well with. Oregano, marjoram, they're like brothers, sisters, so their flavors are very similar. But as you get further down into interesting things, plus it's going to be really hard to find stuff around here. So unless you're going to grow it, you're going to have a harder time. But things like chervil, which most people aren't that familiar with, is very interesting. You know, I like to use a lot of fennel fronds and things like that. They're kind of licorice flavors, so it's very interesting. Fresh herbs are one of those things that it's a trial and error. And I mean, around here, I would try everything you can find because it's pretty limited to what you're going to find. Rosemary is one of my favorite. I like rosemary because it stands out, but it works well. You can do rosemary with pork, it works well. You can do rosemary with potatoes, it works well, and rosemary with chicken. Thyme is also that same thing. It's that same realm of it works well with many things, proteins and starches and vegetables. It's really about the quantity that you like and how much you can put in. So always start small, little pinches of things and try it. Because you can't take it out once it's in, but you can always add more. And keep notes. Most people, when they cook at their house, they don't keep notes. It's really simple to have a little notepad in your pocket. And when you're making a recipe, keep little notes on what you did, because you're going to come back and make it another time or a third time. And you're going to be like, oh man, the first time was the best. And I don't remember what I put in it. So I'd suggest, just like I do with all my cooks, is when you go home and you're playing with food and it's supposed to be fun and you're supposed to be having a good time, it's really about writing it down too, because that way when you go back and you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, I really like this batch, it was the best one I did. So keep notes, try different things, any herbs that you can find around here, and if you have any questions, anybody can feel free to email me on anything that they need, especially on recipes too. If there's something that you can't find out there but you've had it somewhere, let me know and I will do my best to help anybody with recipes that they need.
Is there a way to prepare tofu to make it um, tasty? I think the only time I've ever had it that tasted good to me was I had it at the vegetarian line, and it was soaked in balsamic vinegar.
So tofu is basically a base level flavor, so it's going to take on whatever you choose to give it. So the only way that it's going to taste good to you is if you put it with something that you like. So my favorite way is actually to just lightly season it and to roll it in cornstarch and then flash fry it, because I like to be crispy on the outside. And then whatever sauce that you really like. So for me, sweet chili glaze and some fresh sesame seeds and a little bit of scallions and cilantro is the way I like to eat it. And so, and before I started preparing it that way, I would say I was not a friend of tofu. It wasn't good for me in any way. So when we started trying different things here, I really like it when I do with curry too, because I like the Indian aspect of it. So I do it with curry, and then I'll mix it with some potatoes and peas, and I like doing it that way. But find a sauce that you like, and that's the best way to do it. For me, it's the texture thing. So I have to coat it in cornstarch and fry it so it's crispy on the outside, because it's the softness of it it ruins it for me right off the bat. So if it's crunchy, I can eat it. And if I got a little dipping sauce, so you know, if you're a fan of Asian, then soy sauce might work for you, or sweet chili glaze, or sriracha, you know, something like that. But other people like it in Greek style, where they'll, you know, do garlic and olive oil and things like that, and they'll pan sear it. But it just doesn't come out crisp enough for me. So it's finding that flavor that you really like, because it's really base. I mean, tofu by itself, if you just pick up tofu and eat it, most people can't describe it at all. It's like has no flavor. So.
Does anybody else have any questions? Alrighty. Well, it is about 6:30. Is there anything else you would like to add? Any additional pearls of wisdom you'd like to impart?
No, we on the site we have a video of a tableside Caesar. I don't know how many people out there are traditional Caesar salad fans, but I did a video for a traditional tableside Caesar. The dressing recipe, if you're a true Caesar fan, is without a doubt the best that I've done in 30 years. And I've used the same one for all 30 years. And I love the dressing. It's truly traditional. So if you're not a fan of anchovies and garlic, you're not going to like it. But if you are, it's amazing. And then we also included a little simple, quick chocolate ganache recipe for dessert. And it's great to have the kids around and play with because it's super simple. You can put it together, 2 ingredients, literally 5 minutes. And my kids love it because then they can have strawberries and pineapple and pretzel sticks and marshmallows and dip their own stuff. And I give them sprinkles and different nuts and stuff, and they love to make their own dessert. And so I would look at those and definitely, at this time, whatever you guys kind of packed in the house, if you could do something like that and it's interactive, it makes dinner and dessert so much more fun. So have fun with food. That's the thing is, take it a little less serious and have some more fun. And if it doesn't work out the first time you make it, don't give up on a recipe.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you everyone who came, and hope you all are able to come to next month's event. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thanks so
Bye.
much.